Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Kanika Yadav. I'm consultant and head for genetics division at Modern Diagnostic and Research Center. Today, we are going to discuss two topics. One is basics and clinical utility of NICase testing, followed by a few clinical case reports. And the second session shall be taken by Dr. Prem Gupta. Sir is senior biochemical geneticist in our center, and sir will be covering the topic for importance of newborn screening profile. I will just start the webinar now. So just before starting with the topic, I would just like to give a brief introduction regarding our company. Well, Modern Diagnostic and Research Center started its operation in the year 1985 from New Railway Road, Gurgaon, and we are a 35-year-old company. And now we have become the pioneer in the field of pathology and imaging. Well, the journey was started with the lab and an X-ray machine. But now today we have reached the capacity of almost performing more than 2,500 tests in a day. And we are currently actually performing around 4,000 to 5,000 different assays in our laboratory. And we have two centers. One is at New Railway Road, Gurgaon, and the other center is at Sector 44. And both are NABL and NABH accredited. And our main center is also CAP accredited right now. And we also perform various high-end genetic testing, and which includes various prenatal genetic tests, where various inborn error metabolic screening assays, along with oncology genetic assays and microarray and gene expression profiles. Right now, we are also performing various molecular infectious assay and COVID-19 testing also we are doing. Now, starting with our main topic, as we all are aware that prenatal screening tests can be subgrouped into main three investigations. One is USG investigation, second is routine investigation, and third is the prenatal genetic screening profile. Well, in USG investigations, if we discuss, the scan is generally performed 3 to 4 times in the whole duration of the pregnancy. And the early scan is actually done around 6 to 8 weeks, where we look for the cardiac activity along with the status of the pregnancy. Then fetal anomaly scans are generally being done at level 1 and level 2 are done. One is done at 11 to 14 weeks, and the second is done at around 18 to 20 weeks. And the main reason for doing the fetal anomaly scan is to look for the presence of nasal bone, anti-thickness, along with the development of various organs and some congenital malformation, whether it is present or not. And lastly is the growth scan, which is done around 30 weeks, so that where we monitor the growth of the baby and we measure various markers which are femur length and the abdominal circumference and everything. Now, coming to the routine investigation, these are very important, though we tell them as routine, but it is done in every pregnancy, and it generally includes the CBC profile, thyroid profile, various viral markers, looking for gestation diabetes mellitus, along with urine routine, TORCH profile, etc. Now, coming to the prenatal genetic screening part, the two common disorders in India are generally thalassemia along with Down syndrome, etc. So, for screening these disorders, we have various assays. For thalassemia screening, HB electrophoresis is generally being done in all the pregnant ladies, so that we come to know the carrier status of the mother. Supposedly, if the mother is found to be having any abnormal hemoglobin variant, then the same test is being performed on the father. And if both are found to be minors and are found to have been carrier for the same disorder, then further genetic assay can also be done in the baby to know whether the baby is actually a carrier or it is a thalassemia major case. Marker studies are also being done. In marker studies, what we actually look for is the presence of hormone level in the maternal blood. And that hormone level is actually being correlated with the biophysical profile of the mother, which includes various USC findings along with demographic profile, as well as the lifestyle factors, which includes the IVF and the presence of diabetes, etc. And based on the levels as well as these factors, a statistical risk is also being calculated, where the pregnancy is being termed as low risk, high risk, or intermediate risk for Down syndrome, trisomy 18, 13, as well as neural tube defects. Now, the other essay that is which we are going to discuss in detail is the non-invasive prenatal screening essay. In non-invasive prenatal screening assay, what we are actually testing for is the presence of cell-free fetal DNA in the maternal blood. And that fetal DNA is actually being screened for the assays like Down syndrome and trisomy 18 and 13. Because we are looking it directly on the fetal DNA, it carries a very high accuracy, which includes a very high sensitivity as well as specificity. Now, when we talk about the burden of various genetic disorders in India, congenital malformation, chromosomal disorders, and Down syndrome have a very high burden. And if we talk just about Down syndrome, then we have almost 34,000 births that occur every year in India alone. So we have developed various detection techniques for these fetal anomalies, and we can broadly classify them into non-invasive as well as invasive. In non-invasive, we can have various ultrasonography tests which we are doing along with biochemical screening profile. Invasive tests generally includes chorionic villus sampling as well as immunosynthesis, where the tissue is being sent for further genetic analysis. Well, both the assays have their own advantages as well as disadvantages. So the main advantage of non-invasive assay is that these are affordable, and for invasive is that it is very accurate and it is very sensitive. The limitation for the non-invasive assay is that it carries a very low accuracy, but invasive testing has a very high accuracy. But the main major limitation for invasive testing is that there is a risk for pregnancy loss while performing these assays. So, few studies have reported that the risk for CBS assay can at least be 1%, and for immunosynthesis can be 0.2%, even though when it is being performed by expert hands. So the lacuna that was there was to develop such kind of non-invasive testing which can have an accuracy similar to that of invasive testing. So that's where the non-invasive prenatal screening assay was actually developed. So, what is actually non-invasive prenatal screening? In non-invasive prenatal screening, we are collecting maternal blood, and from maternal blood, we are actually separating out fetal DNA, and the further test is being directly performed on that fetal DNA to look for certain chromosomal disorders. So, just to make us aware of history of the development of NIPS testing, well, it was earlier in the year 1997 when Lowe et al. Actually identified that there is fetal DNA in the maternal blood when he found that bichromosome genetic material can be detected on the maternal blood. So, further utility for this testing was started, which included the detection of various paternally inherited genetic sequences which were different from the maternal sequence. So, this technique was actually meant for detecting the RH status of the fetus along with bichromosome status. So between the year 1997 to 2011, then various techniques were developed where we started to perform these testing on various platforms, which included various microfluidics, digital droplet PCR on NGS, etc. And then clinical trials were also being carried out to see whether we can incorporate this technique into detection of Down syndrome, etc. Then from 2011 till date, in the year 2011, this test was launched clinically to detect Down syndrome, trisomy 18 and 13. And this test is currently being carried out in more than 60 countries, and where we are using this technique to look for these syndromes along with various single gene metabolic disorders. So the further research that is being going on, whether can we perform whole genome sequencing on this very just a small cell-free fetal DNA, will we be able to actually look for the whole genome in that DNA? So, so what is actually cell-free fetal DNA? From where does it arise? It is not actually fetal DNA. This DNA actually arises from the death of cytotrophoblastic cells of placenta. So with this death, actually DNA is released into the blood. So we need to be aware of few limitations of certain placental conditions that can also affect the result. One of the condition is your confined placental mosaicism. By confined placental mosaicism, we mean that certain cells of the placenta have the abnormality while certain cells are normal. Now, when the pregnancy grows, this mosaicism can be covered up by normal cells. But in the finding, we can get some abnormal result which can be attributed to the confined placental mosaicism. Now, who should undergo this test? This test is actually indicated in high risk cases where we actually find high risk or intermediate risk in double marker or quad marker. In advanced ages also, this test can also be performed along with if you are having abnormal USG findings as well as family history. Supposedly, there's a family history where one baby is already has been aborted or one child is already having Down syndrome, and the mother is anxious to perform the test to know the status of the current pregnancy. Then this test can be done to know to detect that syndrome, and there will be no need to perform invasive procedure if the result comes out to be negative. Now, talking about what is the technique for NIPT. The technique that we follow is termed as massive parallel shotgun sequencing. So what we actually mean by it? The cell-free DNA are basically very short base pair of segments, around 200 base pair size, which are circulating in the maternal plasma. So actually maternal plasma will have both maternal part also and the fetal part also. So the 90% DNA is composed only of maternal part and only 5 to 10% is the fetal part. So what we do, we separate out those DNA segments, we amplify those DNA segments and we sequence it, and then those sequences actually align to the reference sequence so that we can know this sequence belongs to this chromosome. And then these chromosomes are actually arranged and the numbers are being counted. So what we expect in a normal finding. In a normal finding, we will get approximate to 4 copies. 2 copies will be from the mother and 2 copies will be from the baby. But if those copy increases or decreases, then we can come to a conclusion that actually this baby can have either trisomy or monosomy. So this technique is being termed as massive parallel shotgun sequencing. So disorders that we are covering is actually Down syndrome, Edwards syndrome, Patau syndrome. Along with that, we are also covering genome-wide aneuploidy detection from chromosome 1 to 22, as well as sex chromosome aneuploidy. So the sex chromosome aneuploidy is the main thing that can be detected because there is actually no test that can detect the presence of Klinefelter syndrome, especially because Klinefelter syndrome does not show any findings in USG and the pregnancy progresses as a normal pregnancy only. So when we talk about various techniques in terms of Down syndrome, the sensitivity can range from 64 to about 88%. So in NIPT though, the detection rate is more than 99%. So this is a very, very high sensitivity. Yeah. And this sensitivity or accuracy is actually similar to the invasive procedures, which includes even CVS and the amniocentesis technique. So we can see that the NIPT has a sensitivity of 99.6%, specificity of 99.8% in one of the study, while CVS and amniocentesis have a lower sensitivity and specificity. We need to be aware that no test, even diagnostic tests, can be 100% accurate. So we have to include this test in our screening procedure. And when we talk about the combined sensitivity as well as the specificity of all the syndrome, trisomy 21 has the highest of it. And as we move towards other chromosomes like 13 or 18 and chromosome X, they're found to have a lower sensitivity because of the difference in the GC region content of the chromosome. But the main thing that we need to note is the negative predictive value. The negative predictive value for each chromosome is more than 99.9%. So what do we mean by actually negative predictive value? It is the probability of the child not being affected when we say that the findings for this child are low risk. That means that there's 99.9% chance that the baby will be normal only. So when we have to rule out this certain disorders, then this becomes a very, very important issue. So generally, this test is being incorporated as a second-tier screening test, and this test is generally being done when we say that certain markers are found to be positive in that. So before proceeding with the invasive procedure, the findings are actually being confirmed by the NIPT procedure. If they come as negative, then no further testing is being required. And if it comes as positive, then we need to confirm whatever findings are there by invasive procedure testing. Now, a recent study has been given and ACOG guidelines have been changed in just last month only, where they recommend the performing of NIPT tests in all the pregnancy, irrespective of the risk factors. So that means along with marker, NIPS testing can also be done. So coming to certain advantages of NIPS screening, which I have already covered, it is safe. By safe, that I mean that you just need to draw a simple maternal blood, and from that only we can do further testing. No invasive procedure will be required, and no chances of pregnancy loss will be there. It is also found to have higher accuracy as compared to other tests. And it is in depth. By in depth, we mean that we are actually sequencing the fragment almost more than 1,000 times. So that's why it becomes more and more accurate enough. And also, more depth analysis is being done. The test that we are doing, the technique which we are doing, which is massive parallel short-run sequencing. This technique can even be done in cases of twins, surrogacy, and egg donors. So the cases where the pregnancy is precious enough. So for NIPT testing, we can do even for such cases. And lastly, it is considered as a peace of mind test. Supposedly, if some mother wants to confirm whether her child is normal for that syndrome or not, then this test can be offered for the same. So just who can have the test? Your gestational age should be more than 10 weeks, though upper limit is not there. In India, we recommend to be just take a margin of 10 to 12 days, which is the turnaround time, so that we can have the time to confirm the finding also. So all these people can actually undergo the testing. And the fetal fraction DNA should be more than 3.5%. That means the result is to be considered only when the fetal fraction is more than 3.5%. This is the lower limit for which the test has been validated. And though we are trying to reduce the fetal fraction even below 3.5%. So this test can also be done even in singleton as well as the twin pregnancy. Just 1 second. Yeah. Now, who are the unsuitable candidates for NIPS? Well, if the mother is actually suffering from cancer or has certain autoimmune diseases or has undergone blood transfusion or already is a carrier of trisomy syndrome or has undergone stem cell transplant or has triplets or just has undergone a vanishing twin demise incident. So these candidates cannot undergo NIPS testing, and the reason is that because even in vanishing twin, the sample needs to be collected only after 8 weeks, as the DNA circulating will still be present even after twin death. So how do we actually report the NIPS finding? Well, NIPS result is being reported as low risk or as high risk, and in very small percentage, the findings will be no call or indeterminate result. No call or indeterminate result is actually being taken when we have cases for borderline risk cases, for low fetal fraction, for high data noise and invalid gender. In such cases, it is always recommended either to go for resampling and resequencing or to directly go for diagnostic testing. Now, this thing needs to be decided by the clinician. Uh, I'll just try to show you our dummy report. We just cover these chromosomes 13, 18, 21, and we directly tell whatever risk is there, either it is low risk or high risk, along with sex chromosome aneuploidy. What here we give is the Z score. So what is Z score is actually the deviation that is being measured from the baseline that I have seen. So based on the Z score, the call is being taken. Yeah. And along with all the major chromosomes, we are also covering the whole chromosome aneuploidy also. So coming to a few of the clinical case reports. Case number 1, a 38-year-old pregnant female with IVF pregnancy, singleton, having a gestation age of 13 weeks, was sent for NIPT testing because of trisomy 21 high risk seen in the double marker, though USG findings were normal. So NIPS testing was done and it came out to be low risk. So no further testing was required in this case, and the baby is completely healthy and normal now, and the pregnancy was completely uneventful. So what we avoided in this case was actually uh, 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 any useless invasive procedure which could have led to pregnancy fetal demise. Coming to case number 2, a 25-year-old female with normal pregnancy of gestation age 19 weeks with singleton showed an abnormality of hypoplastic nasal bone, and quadruple marker showed trisomy 21 high risk. Patient underwent NIPT testing, and the result came out to be high risk for trisomy 21. So invasive procedure was done, and the amniotic fluid was further sent to us for karyotyping in fish. And then the findings were confirmed on both karyotyping as well as fish, where we can see that trisomy 21 is there, and even fish signals were showing trisomy. So the patient underwent MTB for this case. Coming to case number 3, a 29-year-old pregnant lady with 15 weeks of gestational age had a normal USG finding. Double marker showed a high risk for trisomy 13 as well as 18. Patient underwent NIPS testing, and though no abnormality was seen in 13 and 18, but sex chromosome aneuploidy showed a high risk, and it was actually a very incidental finding. And the case is still being followed up, and the patient is going to plan for amniocentesis so that we can actually confirm the finding here. So to conclude, actually, NIPS is a very great screening test, and it will reduce the need for invasive procedure testing. But we need to be aware whatever disorders it can screen, what technique we are using, because the whatever result will come, it will actually apply to the disorders that we have screened. And it is a need that we should always give patients certain pre-tests and as well as post-test counseling, so that patient knows what tests can perform, whatever results are coming, what do they mean, they should be aware of it. And we should also correlate whatever findings we have come with other findings. Supposedly abnormal USG finding is there, but the report is coming normal. Then we have to undergo further testing, which should include microarray or karyotyping, because uh, though the disorder for these syndromes is negative, but we have to look out for other disorders which are causing those changes. So we are certified to carry out NIPT testing in our laboratory, and we are performing it along with the help of Yorgin Promaitha group. Any questions can be addressed right now for NIPT testing related?
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Dr. Punita. Can I ask one question?
Yes, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
One of my patient is 40 years old and
Yes,
she's
ma'am.
gravida too. Her double marker was on the high risk for trisomy 21. It is
Yes,
1
ma'am.
is to 35.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we go for the NIPT or amniocentesis?
Ma'am, you can go for NIPT to confirm the findings, and if the result comes negative, that means Down syndrome is not there, and if it comes positive, then again the finding still needs to be confirmed by invasive procedure, as it's a screening test. So
But
first,
patient is already at the age of 40. Age is 40.
yes, ma'am, age is 40, though the chances are less, but it depends, because it can be negative also. So as per guidelines, it is said that this test can be included as a second year screening test. So it completely depends on the on actually your judgment as well as the patient. What does he want? We can tell the patient that if it comes positive, then still we have to confirm it by amniocentesis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hmm? Sir की book से check करें. Yes. Any further query that can be addressed related to NIPS testing?
Why NIPT is not advisable in triplet pregnancy?
Ma'am, in triplet pregnancy, it is not advisable because in trisomy cases, actually, in triplet cases, actually, this test is still not yet validated. So the findings are not actually true, which we have seen in triplet pregnancies. That's why triplet pregnancies are not advised to undergo NIPS testing.
Okay, and why not in blood transfusion patients?
Ma'am, in blood transfusion patients, we can't undergo this testing because we are in blood transfusion cases, we are not aware the blood that has been transfuted can actually also carry some of the changes also, and also the cell turnover in such cases will be high. By cell turnover, I mean the fetal fraction can be low. Conditions which actually have high cell turnover, which includes the autoimmune disorders or cancers, actually lead to very high cell-free DNA concentration, but that cell-free DNA concentration remains that of the maternal only. So fetal DNA fraction will actually be low. So we don't recommend, because there can be certain mosaic cases also in blood transfusion. So we don't recommend in blood transfusion cases.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Deep Jyoti, sir. Sir, your voice is not clear. Sir, your voice is...
Nearby.
Hello.
Congenital problem in uterus, in the fetus.
Yes, sir.
Hello, am I
Yes,
audible?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Yeah. If we find during the okay, if we find some problem, congenital problem in our fetus, are there facilities, surgical treatment in utero as being done in other countries? Is it available nearby in Delhi NCR?
Sir,
If you
I
find,
think, sir,
yeah.
what I'm aware is I think testing for invasive testing facilities are available, which includes the CVS biopsy as well as amniocentesis. But performing the surgery on in uterus, I'm not aware of it, sir. I'll have to look for it.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Sir, ma'am, any other query related to NIPS testing? Any query, ma'am?
Hello.
Hello. Yes, ma'am.
One more thing. The same patient, 40 years female,
Yes, ma'am.
if NIPT comes to be negative,
Yes, ma'am.
then can we assure her that your fetus will be absolutely normal? Or we should go for the amniocentesis? Is still the NIPT is on the lower risk?
Ma'am, NIPT test is not dependent on age.
Right.
So, as said that though its negative predictive value is more than 99.9%, so these are the probability that the fetus will be normal. But supposedly, if some abnormal USG finding is still there, or certain markers can be seen, or some other disorder is there which can be seen on the ultrasound, then I think invasive testing needs to be done.
Only then the invasive procedure should be
Yes,
advised.
ma'am. NIPT test is not dependent on age, ma'am. It
Of
actually
age,
just looks
right.
for DNA testing only, ma'am. But as said, ma'am, age is very high, so the chances and probability of Down syndrome is very high. So all the tests needs to be looked after, and it needs to be correlated.
I think the proper discussion should be done with the patient.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Counseling should be
yes.
given, and
Yeah.
chances are that report can come as high risk only. Then she has to undergo invasive procedure. So these things can be told to the patient. Then we can look after, and fetal anomalies can next must also be done so that we can see if any USG markers are there or not for the same.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We shall start our next session just in 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone present there. I am Dr. Prem Gupta. I am consultant here for biochemical genetics. Today I will be discussing with you about newborn screening test, which is also used in high-risk patients like who come after certain age with symptoms such as developmental delays or mental retardation or other problem. So we will go with this. So let me explain to you about newborn screening. So it is a screening test to detect some biochemical abnormalities in the newborn, and it is done throughout the world. But in India, we are still lagging in the this test, and it's not frequently prescribed to the patients. And but slowly we are catching up, and mostly private companies are offering this test right now, and government is in various stages of planning to offer this test to the public. So the purpose of newborn screening test. The purpose of newborn screening test is to screen the infants or the newborn early in the life, like after 2 days or 3 days of life, before any symptoms develop, so that we can detect some genetic disorders, biochemical disorders, which can lead to metabolic disorders in the baby. And so they can be detected early, and treatment can start as soon as possible, because many of these disorders, if they are left untreated, they lead to lifelong problems with nervous system and developmental disabilities. So what exactly happens when there is a defect in the body, or there is a disorder in the body? So what happens that there are thousands of chemical reactions are going on in the body at one particular time, and lots of enzymes are involved in these reactions. So all these boxes with E1, E2, E3, they represent enzymes, and the arrows are the chemical transformations which are happening. You can see that if a particular enzyme, for example, if E11 is defective, so what will happen? The metabolite L cannot be converted to metabolite M. So then what will happen, that metabolite N will not be able to be produced in the body. So there will be deficiency of metabolite N, and also metabolite L, which will be present in large amount in the body now, because it is not being able to convert it to M. So that this metabolite will now get channeled into alternative pathways and produce some compounds which may be toxic to the body, and these toxic compounds, they cause symptoms in the babies. So let's discuss some important clinical features of these disorders which are covered under newborn screening test. So these are diverse heterogeneous group of hereditary metabolic disorders with versatile clinical manifestations, mainly in children. But sometimes the manifestation does not become apparent till a certain age, like 3 or 5 years, and sometimes even adults, very rare, but some adults may also see some symptom, and at that time they may get diagnosed for these disorders. So all the infants who have these disorders are normal at birth, and important thing is that they note that all these disorders have non-specific clinical manifestation, and mostly confused with the neonatal sepsis. Disorders are rapidly progressive. They cause irreversible damage early in their course, and these are usually severe and lethal unless they are diagnosed early and therapy is started soon after diagnosis. But the good thing is that treatment is often effective if it is started early, and long-term outcome can be improved. Although in most cases the baby cannot be like made completely normal, but still the prognosis is quite good in many diseases. And correct diagnosis can also help in genetic counseling, and the further birth of babies with these disorders can be prevented by counseling the mother and doing some prenatal testing before birth. So when to suspect that a baby may have IEM? So there are many pointers which point in this direction, that a baby should be suspected to have a inborn error of metabolism. If there is a parental consanguinity, because when there is parental consanguinity, the recessive genes which are present in both parents but they are not expressing any disease, they come together, and the baby has very high chances of becoming the sufferer of that trait. So, and if there is a positive family history of similar death of newborns or infants in the family, so that also is a strong indicator of the presence of IEM. And in most cases, when the baby has a few feedings, then that the onset of symptoms occur, like the baby refuses to take feeding, there may be vomiting, the baby may feel lethargic, hypotonia may be present, the baby may undergo coma or seizure, etc. Another important set of symptoms for these babies is hyperglycemia, ketosis, and metabolic acidosis, because many of these disorders lead to these states. Developmental delay or regression may be apparent after few months or years, and in many diseases like maple syrup urine disease or some other metabolic disorders, unusual odor may be present in the body fluids like sweat or urine. And jaundice, visceromegaly like splenomegaly is seen in many cases. Prevalence of inborn errors of metabolism, if we discuss about it, so individual prevalence of each disorder is very less. But since there are hundreds of these disorders which may occur in a particular baby, so the combined incidence of all these disorders is quite significant. And according to one estimate, about 1 in 1,000 babies suffers from one of the disorders covered under these tests. Many studies have been done in India also, although a very large scale study is still lacking in India, but many studies point out similar or slightly higher incidence of these disorders in India. The reason for higher incidence of these disorders in India is that in India we have many inbreeding populations where there is marriage happening within very small group. So this causes the recessive genes to come together and cause these disorders at a greater frequency. And another important point to note is that the baby who are admitted to NICU, out of these babies, about 5 to 15% of the babies will show these disorders when they are tested for that. So it's a quite a significant fraction of babies who are in NICU, they may suffer from these disorders, and it's very important to screen for these disorders for these newborns. The newborn screening test started in USA. There was a doctor called Dr. Robert Guthrie. So he had a nephew, like he was suffering from phenylketonuria, and at that time it was not known. So his sister, he asked him to develop some tests to determine what kind of disorder he is suffering from. So he first of all developed a test for phenylketonuria. Initially, it was a bacterial inhibition assay test, which was very crude. But later on, he also developed a paper, like a filter paper, on which blood could be collected, dried, and then that paper can be used as a sample. This is same paper with little modification that we are still using today. So in newborn screening sample, the blood is collected on a paper, like few drops of blood, and then it is dried completely, and that paper acts as a sample, and that can be sent anywhere in the world without any temperature requirement at an ambient temperature or room temperature. So after this, phenylketonuria was started as a newborn screening test in USA. The second disorder which was added to this panel was congenital hypothyroidism. And these two disorders were done throughout the world for quite some years. And in 1990s, a major breakthrough happened in the form of development of tandem mass spectrometry, which is a technique which can detect a number of metabolic disorders in a single sample in very less time, like maybe in 2 minutes. So after this technique came into the fore, then a lot of disorders were included in the newborn screening panel, and currently we screen for about 50 disorders in this panel. So different categories of disorders are there, like some are metabolic disorders, some are hormonal disorders, some are blood disorders, and so on. And currently, the American College of Medical Genetics has recommended a panel which should be followed by the different nations across the world as a uniform screening panel. And here at Modern Diagnostics, we follow the same panel, and all the disorders which has been recommended by American College of Medical Genetics are covered in our panel. So newborn screening scenario is very disappointing in India, because in India we still carry very low number of newborn screening for our newborns. As you can see, throughout the world, the coverage is quite good. Like in USA, it is 100%. In China, it is 60%. In Japan, it is 99%. And similarly, in other countries, it is quite comparable. But in India, we still have less than 1% of the coverage, which is quite disappointing. And there is a need to scale up this coverage, because in India, the birth rate is very high. About 2.5 crore babies are born every year. And the babies with these disorders is quite high. According to one estimate, about 30 babies are born every day in India with one of these disorders. So incidences of various disorders in India is between 1 in 2000 to 1 in 10,000, but combined incidence is about 1 in 1,000. So what advantages we offer at Modern Diagnostics is that we have all the latest equipment which is required to perform these high-end tests. All our personnel has been trained here or abroad with all the required knowledge to perform these tests. Also, in these tests, when the physician or the metabolic physician is treating the patient, they need specialized diets to give to these patients so that they can live a normal life. So we can arrange the diets also for the doctors if required. All tests are performed at very quick turnaround times, and if the doctor informs us that the particular baby is very sick and we want to report within hours, that can also be arranged. And one very good thing about us is that we have direct access to the scientific staff. So if doctors have any query or any suggestions, they can directly speak to the scientific staff. And additionally, whenever there is some borderline case, so in which it is like not sure whether the baby has a disorder, but the test is showing that disorder, so we will do a free repeat analysis for that particular sample. Our labs are CAP and NABL accredited, which deliver fast and accurate results. So there are number of disorders which are present, which currently occur, like metabolic disorders, but only limited number of disorders are included in this panel. The reason being that we cannot do all the tests, 500 tests or 600 tests, which should be done. Only those tests are included which fulfill the criteria present in this slide. So first is that disorder should occur with a significant frequency. It should not happen that only 4 or 5 cases have been reported throughout the world for a particular disorder. Then there is no need of, there is no logic for doing that test, because we won't find the patient with that disorder. So it's no point in doing that test. Test should be inexpensive so that it can be offered to a great number of patients with less expenditure. Also, effective treatment or intervention should exist for that disorder, because if no treatment is available, then there is no point in finding out that disorder. So treatment should be available. Also, if the baby is left untreated, the baby may die or develop severe physical disorders and mental retardation. So the disorder should have some symptoms, because there are many metabolic disorders which are there which do not show any symptom. So there is no need to test or to treat these disorders. And also in all these diseases we are included in the panel where the baby appear normal at birth. Because if the symptoms start showing, so we can automatically find out that the baby has some problem. But in these disorders, the baby appear normal at birth. So it is important to screen all babies so that we can find out the babies with the problem before the symptoms occur. Because once symptoms occur, they progress very rapidly and the condition of the baby deteriorate very rapidly. So it's important to catch the babies when they are still normal. So this is the workflow for the newborn screening. So the specimen is collected at the birthing center. Specimen is sent to the laboratory for analysis. If the result is negative, no further action is required. If the screening result is positive, then the parents or the doctor are intimated by using phone or email, and further confirmatory testing is done, which also can be suggested by us, or we can also perform those tests here. So newborn screening technology is basically divided into 3 parts. One is biochemical assays, which has about 7 disorders, tandem mass spectrometry, the advanced panel, which has about 42 disorders, and hemoglobinopathies, which have 4 groups of disorders. So biochemical assays include these 7 disorders. And these disorders are important because these disorders occur in our population with significant frequency. And also important is that for all these disorders, significant medical intervention or treatment is available. And in many cases, the baby can be made to live a good life with the help of the treatment. So if these disorders are caught early, the baby can be given a good life. Tandem mass spectrometry has amino acid disorders, fatty acid oxidation disorders, and organic acid disorders. These are the three categories of disorders which are covered under the tandem mass spectrometry disorders. And so see, these are some of the examples of the disorders of amino acid disorders, and the primary biomarker which are mostly amino acid which we use for diagnosis. So these are the some of the examples of fatty acid oxidation disorders, and these are the primary biomarker, which are the acyl carnitines, the conjugate of carnitine with the fatty acid, various fatty acids that are used as a marker for these tests. These are organic acid disorders. In organic acid disorders, the body accumulates a large amount of organic acid like butyric acid or isovaleric acid, which leads to metabolic acidosis in the body, and with the uh, corresponding deleterious symptoms in the body. And hemoglobinopathies have four different categories of disorders. Sickle cell disease can be identified. Hemoglobin SC disease can be identified. Sickle beta thalassemia we can identify. And other hemoglobin variants can also be identified by using the newborn screening panel. So we have already discussed the importance of performing NBS tests. So I will skip this slide. And okay, so what are the advantages of performing basic tests that we discussed earlier? So all these disorders can be managed quite well, medical. So the babies can be offered significant benefit. And also because there are 7 disorders and each test is done individually. So if a patient does not want to undergo 7 disorders due to cost consideration, then he can be offered 1 or 2 tests or 3 tests for which the prevalence is very high. So these tests can be customized, so patient does not have to undergo all 7 tests. And if there is a doubt or there is a chemical or there is a clinical history in the family, so only those tests can be performed out of 7. For expanded panel or the advanced panel, the advantage is that about 40 disorders are covered in a single test. So although it may be little costly, but still, since 40 disorders are done in that amount, so it is still cost effective. We are using the same technology that is being used worldwide, so our technology is quite good. And the diets which are required to treat these patients with the disorders which are done by TMS. So these diets are available in India now, and many doctors with the required specialization are also available in India to see the patients. So now there is another important aspect that there are 2 technologies which are used in India. One is TMS and one is GCMS. So both are used in India to perform the expanded newborn screening panel. But the TMS is the right technology to do this panel, because throughout the world only TMS is the technique which is used by all nations. Only in certain countries like India and Singapore, people are using GCMS also, but it is not the right technology to perform the expanded newborn screening panel. So the screening should be performed only on TMS only. There are various reasons for that is presented in this slide. So these are some of the facilities that we have. This is the Thermo Fisher Multiscan FC microplate photometer that we use for biochemical assays. This is our tandem mass spectrometry system that we use for detecting amino acid disorders, fatty acid oxidation disorders, and organic acid disorders. Now, I will be discussing another important aspect of the newborn screening, that is sample collection. Because the sample collection is very important. If the sample is not collected properly, it may not be possible to perform the test. So sample should be collected from the sites that are indicated in the foot of the baby. It should not be performed at the center, only on the sides of the in the lower side of the foot, where the padded area is very good and it's very less likely to puncture the brain. Sorry, the bone. The lancet that we give is a single time use lancet. So once it is used, it cannot be reused. When the lancet is used, the one drop of blood is found sticking to the baby's feet. We should be slightly touched to the paper and allowed to soak in the paper on its own. There should not be any forced soaking on the paper. And once the drop is collected, we should be careful that the sample should not look like any of these three. The upper sample is good, like single drop has formed a circle here. If the drop is not big and we try to multiply apply the blood to the card, then it will look like this, which is not suitable for testing. Sometimes a very large amount of blood starts dripping from the baby's feet and we apply multiple drops on the same circle. That is also not good because that will lead to more amount of blood present in a particular area, and that may give false positive results because all the metabolites will be measured more there. Also, and lastly, sometimes what happens that the blood coming out of the feet is not good. So the technician may try to squeeze the feet to increase the amount of blood or the size of the blood drop. In that case, some of the serum or tissue fluid can also come along with the blood. So that will separate, like the fourth example in this slide, which is also not suitable for the test. So the sample should like the first example. It should look like the first example. So that's all for this presentation, and I will be very happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time and attention.